Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of all ages. We're going to start fairly soon, and when we start, we're going to start with a video that will be shown on this screen right here. And in order to do that, we have to darken the room so that we can see it. So if you'll all kind of get settled in at your tables, we don't want you to be walking around spilling cocktails on each other. So when you all get all seated, we will begin. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. I need all the help I can get. What a nice turnout. A nice mix of wonderful people. At least we think we are. And we all, of course, are devoted to our passion of three-cushion billiards. We just love it. So we're just about ready to start. So if the few that are still getting food and cocktails will find a seat. We don't want you to stumble and fall in the dark. We'll begin to get going. I think we're just about ready to go. Okay, so the lights are going to go down and the video will start. The tribute to Bob Byrne.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, students of the game, distinguished visitors, members of the press, members of the police. What I'm about to show does not involve money changing hands, so the police are free to leave. So how do you explain your amazing success? Just by hard work?
My philosophy is if human being believes to do something, they can do.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And I try to see what is happening. I try to see very clear, very, how do you say, not optimist, but
Realist.
realist, yeah.
Yes.
I want to see everything. I know I beat Sang Lee, but I didn't beat Sang Lee. It doesn't mean that I am better than Sang Lee or I am better than somebody else. Yeah, this is my philosophy.
Now what is he going to do?
This recording can travel around the world if he makes it one. Huh?
I think it will. Force follow, I think he's got it.
It's for the history books.
That's for the history books. That is the best game of 50 points ever played in the United States. 50 points in 14 innings.
14 innings. Amazing.
There's a little problem. Make sure he hits the yellow thin enough so it doesn't bounce back up and get into the way of the... Oh, I see. He drove it that way.
Boy, I think
That's a wonderful game.
second win against Sang Lee in one tournament. That's really great.
Everybody's thrilled with that performance. We've seen a real wunderkind here. Everybody's congratulating him. They're all thrilled to see this new superstar arrive on the scene. We can look for him to be world champion, I think, in the next 5 years. Here's our first look at Sang Chun Lee, an artist and a magician at the table. He's won the U.S. Championship 5 straight times, and in 1994 he was the world's champion. Well, you immediately think of a long angle here because the red ball is big. I believe Sang Lee has to use a touch of hold up here to make sure it goes long enough. This is billiards at its best. Look at that beautiful shot. Here's another one of those up and down shots where you should use enough speed to make it the second way if you miss it going in.
Yeah, it's the first time in how many years? 1950?
40, I guess 1950.
Yeah, 41 years.
1954 is when Harold Wurst won that tournament in Argentina, so it's 40 years we've been without the world champion in this country. Oh, beautiful. He's right in the middle.
He is, Sang Lee is the master of making small balls into very large balls, you know, very, very large targets.
Bob Byrne, a national-class billiards player and a winner of major tournaments, he is also the author of 2 books considered by experts to be the finest of their kind ever written. Byrne's Standard Book of Pool and Billiards and Byrne's Treasury of Trick Shots in Pool and Billiards. His articles on the subject have appeared in numerous publications, from Sports Illustrated to Playboy, and his monthly features in Billiards Digest have brought fresh insight into the fine points of the game to players everywhere. Along the way, Byrne has managed to squeeze in careers as a civil engineer, a magazine editor, and now as a successful novelist and freelance writer with 13 published books.
So are you all done writing pool books?
I don't think I'll write another pool book, but the reason I wrote so many is that they kept selling, and the publisher would
They
say,
wanted
well,
more.
what else can you do, you know? So 2 of them were mainly collections of articles from Billiards Digest. I would just, after 5 years of writing a monthly column, I'd have enough for a book with a little padding. And then the last one, the complete book, that was original, but you know, I said at the beginning, you can't be a complete book of pool shots because it's infinite. It's really a special pleasure to be able to make a living off your hobby. So that's my story in a nutshell, which is right where it belongs.
That was kind of nice. And that gives us all a background of those of us, many may have never met him personally. Many of us have. Many of us have played against him. I had the particular pleasure of playing against Bob in 2012 was the last time I played against Bob. And he's a wonderful, wonderful person, as all of us that know him know. But what impressed me as I thought about it was his exemplary attitude at the table, his manners, his demeanor. It just made him fun to play with and showed what can be done when you set your mind to it. He was a pleasure to play with and against, and it was even a pleasure to lose to, which I did. But that's neither here nor there. Now, there are many people that have things to say about Bob, but there's one person in particular that we're honored to have with us, his wife, Cynthia Byrne. Would you please stand up, Cynthia? Come on up. She has agreed to share some thoughts, feelings, and things about Bob, and we'll have other people to say things too. And anyone, as this progresses, that feels they want to have something to say, the microphone will be open. So I'm honored to present Cynthia Byrne.
Hi. You know who I am now. I'm Bob's second wife. His first wife was more famous than I, but I was more, I had more longevity. I'd like to tell you some things about Bob that you may not know, since probably most of you don't know about him from the billiards world. But there was a lot more to him than just Billiard Bob. He was multifaceted. I met Bob in May 1986, and I met him because I had read two of his quotation books, 637 Best Things Anybody Ever Said, and the other 637 Best Things Anybody Ever Said. And I thought, this guy has my sense of humor. So I wrote him a letter, and I lived in Denver, he lived in California, and I invited him to come to dinner, said I'd take him to dinner. I said it wasn't a marriage proposal or an illicit proposal, it was just a dinner proposal. So about a year or a month later, he called me on the phone, and I was really astounded and to hear from him, because it has to go to the publisher and back and everything. So he came to Denver in about a month, and I did have to take him for dinner, and he did make me pay for it. So, but after that, we were together for 30 years. And the following summer, he moved to Denver to live with me for a year. And then about a year after that, we both moved to San Francisco Bay Area, where we stayed off and on for 9 years. And then moved back to Bob's hometown of Dubuque, Iowa, where he was like a fourth generation Byrne. And it was a little bit notorious for various reasons. But that was when our great adventures began, because Bob was a big fish in a little pond there. I mean, he was very much appreciated in town and very much loved. And during those years, he had numerous books published. He made a number of pool and billiard instructional videos, and he was inducted into the Billiard Hall of Fame. He had many other honors, which in and out of the billiard world, which you probably know about if they're billiard related. But he was loved in Dubuque by many people, and he was roasted and toasted more than once. His final party was on May 21st, 2017 at the Hotel Julian in Dubuque. About 200 people from 10 states attended. Bob Jewett was there. And he would have loved it. It was exactly what he specified he wanted for a memorial in his very own handwriting. One of the most amazing things, Bob, was to suck me into the wonderful world of billiards. I don't know very many women who would sit on a bench for 9 hours and watch billiards and then realize that she hadn't even had lunch. But we went to the last international tournament at the Karam Cafe in Flushing last August, and we had such a great time there, and I was really glad we went, because that was the last tournament he was able to attend. But besides billiards, Bob enjoyed many more things. He was, first of all, me. He brought me breakfast every Sunday morning in bed for about 20 years. And he loved magic, especially close-up magic, and he was a pretty good close-up magician, belonged to the Magic Castle in Hollywood. And he helped start the Dubuque Magic Club. They had a ceremony for him called the Broken Wand Ceremony. When a magician dies, the magic goes with him, so they break his wand. It was a lovely ceremony, and everybody thought it was terrific. He was a ranking chess player. He wrote 24 books of fiction, anthologies, and, of course, billiards. He loved cartoons from the New Yorker. He loved the art. He loved art and the Dubuque Museum of Art, including my artistic endeavors, and he was always very supportive and championed me at all times. He loved independent films and dark, dark comedy, classical music, and the Dubuque Symphony Orchestra. And the Dubuque Symphony Orchestra is going to give a small duet concert in October in Bob's honor. And he loved history, especially religious and anthropological history, and Dubuque history, politics, science and skepticism, mathematics of all kinds, including physics and calculus, and he was an engineer. He loved stand-up comedians. We saw many stand-up comedians alive and on television. He was interested in Catholic education because he was brought up Catholic, and he wrote a book called Memories of a Non-Jewish Childhood, which was a notorious, appreciated, and reviled book about growing up Catholic in Dubuque, Iowa, which is a very Catholic city. He loved sports of all kinds, not just billiards. He loved golf and tennis, which he loved to watch them on television, but he never played them. He was a fascinating man, and I hope some of you got to know him during these many years. He loved the billiard world. He was all about billiards and pool to a lesser degree, but billiards was his game of choice, and he was good at it. And I think he will be remembered for a long time for all that he contributed. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia. It's very heartwarming to hear that kind of conversation. You can feel the love that existed and exists between them. And there's living proof that behind every successful man is a great successful woman. And this is an example of that. So we're going to continue on with some things about Bob Byrne. Many of you knew him personally. And right now, I'd like to invite or ask our USBA President, Mason Shuney, to come up and offer a few words. And others will come up and with any anecdotes or anything they have to say about Bob Byrne. And hope you're enjoying your evening and the cocktails. And let's continue with the tribute to Bob Byrne. Thank you, Bob. Mason?
Hi, folks. Thank you. Thank you. Well, on behalf of the USBA, welcome to the 2017 National Championship. Personally, I'm excited about being back here at the beautiful Casino del Sol and would like to thank management for having us back here. I would also like to thank each and every one of you players for making the commitment to play in our championship. At this time, I would like to take a moment to honor a special friend. As all of you know, we lost one of our most revered brethren last December when Robert Byrne passed away. Today, we have many great players, students of the game that has deep passion for this game we play. Bob was all of those things and more. What Bob brought to the table may never be equaled. He played the game, he supported the game, he wrote about the game, gave instructions, commented at every level, and if we were to try to cover his works, his playing career, his writing career, his personal life and contribution to humanity in general, we would have to add another day to finish this tournament. Enough to say that Bob Byrne will be greatly missed, and he was thoroughly enjoyed during his wonderful life. Our condolences to his wife, Cindy, and our heartfelt thanks for being here today and allowing us to publicly address our appreciation for what Bob did for the game we love so much. Thank you, and God bless.
Well said, Mason. I'd like to encourage anyone who'd like to speak, and there are a couple that have already volunteered. And in no particular order, Daryl Stutzman, are you ready to say a few words? Definitely.
I think I know most of you out there. I got to tell you that we almost had Bob and Cindy talked into staying and living in Tacoma, Washington. But unfortunately, they decided they could write anywhere. And they thought there was a better place to live. And I think Des Moines, Iowa, I've only been there once, but I was passing through. But I actually had got to know Bob a lot over these years. I've had dozens of people stay at my home, billiard players, and my wife, she is a real judge of character. And I heard Cindy talk about how fascinating Bob was, how many interests he had. Well, my wife found the same thing, and he was always welcome in our home. I want to say I was blessed to have known him, and I hope that Cindy has a wonderful life now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Daryl. Another man that has given a lot to three-cushion billiards over the years, including being a past president of the USBA, has volunteered to say a few words. Bob Jewett, would you step forward, please?
Well, I first saw Bob Byrne before I knew who he was. That was 1966, and it was the San Francisco Invitational Tournament. He brought the U.S. back into international billiards when he brought Ceulemans and the South Americans and other Europeans and the Japanese to San Francisco for the 1966 Invitational Tournament. I was fortunate enough to be in the area at the time going to school, and several of us went over and saw Ceulemans and Johann Schertz play. Ceulemans had, his first scoring innings were a 5, 10, and a 5, and that made a big impression on me. And, but that was just part of it. He and the other billiard fanatics began the BFUSA, which was America's entry into the international scene, the international organization, the UMB, and that is how the U.S. started to send players to the World Championships. At the time it was amateur, now they don't worry about that much anymore. I also had the great privilege of living near Bob during the 70s and into the 80s when he lived in California. And I happened to play in the same pool hall he did, and I got to play billiards with him frequently. That was before he had started writing his billiard books, and I had a little bit of input to his first book on billiards and pool. And there are two things that I really noticed about him as an author. The first was that he wrote very clearly. His diagrams illustrating a particular carom shot, three-cushion shot, If he was illustrating a backup shot, there was basically nothing else to play in the shot. So yeah, that's what you do. You play a backup shot in that situation. The other thing is that he was very good about giving credit to everybody. You see a lot of billiard and pool books where suddenly these shots appear and the author kind of takes them as his own. Bob was always very good about giving credit to whoever came up with the idea or showed him the idea. And his book, the Standard Book of Pool and Billiards, remains the clearest explanation in English of how to play carom billiards to this day. So Bob contributed greatly in other ways too, and we were very fortunate to have him around. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Is there anyone else that would have some comments to make? Please step forward. And welcome Professor Cueball.
Just a short note. In 2003, about that time, Bob started to write a column in my Professor Cueball's National Pool and News publication. At that time, he was very generous and gave me 3 books with permission to use any content and diagrams I wanted for my publication. He gave me Byrne's complete book of pool shots, Treasury of Trick Shots, and Advanced Technique in Pool and Billiards. Almost 20 years later, I'm still placing in my publication his articles. His knowledge of both games of the sport has helped vast amount of players throughout the years. Bob will be missed by many players, and his memories will last forever.
I had the pleasure of being at a friend's house who's here with us, Gary Cohen. And in his billiard room, I noticed that he had on the wall Murphy's Laws of Billiards. And I thought it was very funny. And when I looked at it a little more closely, I see it was written by Bruce Fenske and Robert Byrne. I'm not going to read the whole list, but I think as billiard players, we all know what this means. For instance, a billiard is not meant to happen in nature. The term natural is useful mainly in humiliating a player who misses. A scratch causes several immediate near misses of naturals. Kiss outs occur only on shots that would have scored. And it goes on, I won't read them all, but it does. The final one he says about billiards is Murphy's Laws of Billiards, of course. On any given day, you should have stayed home. One more additional one that I thought was kind of nice was spotting jumped or frozen balls will result in a natural for your opponent and a stiff for you. Do we have anyone else with some ideas would like to comment? Mike Massey, renowned in his skills as a fantastic trick shot shooter and not a bad billiard player either. Have you lost a match yet here, Bob?
I lost 2 today.
Oh, well, then so did I.
You did too.
And probably others as well. Mike Massey, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I just want to say Bob was a really big influence in my life. I met him the first time in like 1978, and that's when he was coming out with the book of the Standard Book of Pool and Billiards. And in this world, you know, I'm 70 years old, and I've actually lost my identity many, many times. And I have to keep going back to pool and Jesus Christ to find my identity. And but Bob, you know what I liked about Bob? He was like a kid. Every time you saw him, he was always smiling and happy, and he loved the game, you know, and anything I know about billiards, I learned from that, you know, the +2 system. I mean, I don't, you know, was from that. And, you know, he put me in there like 18 times, so that helped me too, you know. But anyway, I love Bob, and you know, and I believe, see, to me, death is victory. I believe he's in a better place now, and I have no doubt. When I die, do a dance. You know, I mean, really, I mean, I'm serious. Do a dance, because I'll be with Jesus and the angels. I have no doubt. And but I want to, you know, I want to thank his wife here very much for what Bob's done, you know, in the pool world, and not only in the pool world, just in the world. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Mike. I have one thing I'd like to say on a, not really a personal note, something that occurred to me. I know that there's a Mount Rushmore with 4 of the greatest people in America on it. I think if Three Cushion Billiards had a Mount Rushmore, we'd only have 3 people on it, of course, Three Cushion Billiards. And I would say, well, 4 cushions. Okay, well, the three I could think of that I think contributed the most to American billiards, not to leave out any others that are deserving, but I would put, first of all, and this is not in any particular order of importance, Willie Hoppy, Mark Twain, and of course another great author, Bob Byrne. And that could be our Mount Rushmore. It's very nice to be here and hear all these nice things said about Bob. And I know many of you may have other things that you'd like to say, and now is the time. Anyone? I'm running out of material. Ah, no, he's leaving the room. Well, let's continue to enjoy ourselves. And I guess the broadcast part is done, but we're going to continue to enjoy ourselves as a tribute to Bob Byrne, his terrific sense of humor, his contribution to Three Cushion Billiards, and other things as well, to literature, and what he has brought us all and will continue to bring us as we remember and tribute to him. Thank you very much for your attention, and thank you very much for enjoying.